Well, Mike, the March 29th numbers definitely stunned the corn market, and it contradicted the Cotton Council's February survey. Let's just say it was a report full of surprises. Also, Josh Maples is going to break it down for us. Meanwhile, the nation's hog supply further increases as the live cattle market appears to be on solid ground. The top story, the pair of USDA reports released on the final business day of March. Traders and economists are still taking stock of all those numbers, and when it comes to cotton, Mississippi producers aren't in line with what cotton farmers elsewhere are planning to do. Extension's Josh Maples has all the details, beginning with the biggest surprise to him.
The newsworthy headline is the big decrease in soybean acres. So USDA is expecting plantings of soybeans 84.6 million acres. That would be down about 5% compared to last year. And just for comparison, Mississippi as a whole, for all crops, plants less than that 4.6 million acre decline that we're thinking about for the U.S. next year. So a pretty significant chunk of acres is going to shift out of soybeans into something else this year.
And what about corn? What did that figure turn out to be?
Yeah, so corn stands to gain the most in terms of plantings with the decline in soybeans. So we're looking at corn to be up about 4% to 93 million acres. So really a lot of those acres earlier that we talked about with soybeans shifting over to corn.
And I guess that drop in soybean acres is really no surprise or been speculated about for months here.
It has been, and really if you look at the pre-report estimates, going back for the past few months, expectations were for lower soybean acres. However, the actual number that came in with the plantings report was lower than even all of those expectations. So probably it's a really low number compared to what we were expecting going into the report.
Now, as far as cotton, the trade seemed to be expecting a 2 to 3% increase in plantings, but that's not what the report said, is it?
Yeah, that's right. Cotton was pretty interesting. Like you mentioned, expecting an increase in plantings for the U.S., but actually the report came in with about a 2% decrease. And so this was an unexpected thing for the markets, and we saw a little bump in cotton prices since the report in response to that.
And I believe I saw where Texas was one state that seemed to be playing a large part in that change.
Absolutely. Texas had the most to do with those cotton acres changing.
All right. What about just the state of Mississippi as far as plantings? Can you kind of recap the major crops and what expected?
Sure. So if we're looking at soybeans, expecting to be down about 10% compared to last year, right at 2 million acres of soybeans are expected to be planted in Mississippi. Looking at corn, corn's expected to be up 25% compared to last year. So 680,000 acres, or 600,000 acres, I'm sorry, compared to a significantly lower number last year. And then cotton is at 680,000 acres, which would be up significantly, about 10% compared to a year ago.
Now, we also have the grain stocks report coming out here since we saw you last. What about corn and soybeans? What did that have to say, really?
Yeah, so the big number from that report, or the big story, is that a record large number of soybean stocks currently, about 2.7 billion bushels of soybeans, really large number, and then large number on the corn side too. So looking at about 8.6 billion acres or billion bushels of corn stocks right now. So the story was big stocks and even bigger stocks than were expected pre-report.
Meanwhile, the 2019 U.S. grain sorghum crop could go down as the smallest on record if the USDA is correct. Sorghum demand is down due to the trade tensions with China, and the government is now projecting this year's crop will be down 10% from 2018 and potentially the lowest on record. We'll see if you are up on your ag history in our trivia quiz this week. The pest that used to be so costly to Mississippi cotton farmers is no longer a problem. And our question is, what year was the boll weevil declared officially eradicated in Mississippi? Is the answer A, 1997, B, 2000, C, 2005, or D, 2009? We'll have that answer coming up. Not every report released by the USDA the last week of March had to do with row crops. The hogs and pigs report also came out, and pork exports took a plunge. According to the numbers, primarily due to the pressure from tariffs involving both Mexico and China. Dan Huber says there have been a number of situations where the hog market has been disappointed time and again.
One, I think everybody was maybe a little bit too geared up that, boy, this African swine fever is really going to create a big export demand. That really hasn't materialized, and probably understandably so. It's probably going to the last half of 19 if China really steps up and needs to start bringing pork into their country. So we were premature in thinking that. One, if you go back to the reports, the last hog and pig report, we're looking at 1-2% hogs increases, but here we're seeing 4 and 5% increase in slaughter numbers, partially weight, but partially head. So, I mean, it would appear that those numbers were understated. So it's, you've disappointed the trade in several different ways, which I think has just exacerbated the problems to the downside. Hopefully we have a lot of that behind us. Certainly the African swine fever situation is not going away in China and could be spreading to some other countries at this point.
Meanwhile, stability is expected in the live cattle market, at least for the near term, anchored primarily by domestic demand. Trader Ted Seifert says he thinks most of the bullishness is tied into how well the economy is doing.
While we've had some volatility in the stock market, I think the general belief is that we're standing on solid ground, even with the trade dispute with China. And our tastes are just such that, we eat beef. So I think that continues. I'm bullish domestic demand. I continue to say that. And as far as the live cattle market is concerned, we've been holding this really organized uptrend channel.
Back to the trivia quiz now to wrap up the markets for the first week of April. Our question again, it's what used to be a major pest of cotton in the Mid-South? Well, the boll weevil was declared officially eradicated in Mississippi in 2009. So D is the correct answer.